I'm Caroline Asiala. I'm the marketing manager here at Bobtail. I'm joined by a number of my colleagues, including Rick Howard, who's our sales manager, and want to welcome you to our online workshop. This is a workshop about finding good loads, getting better rates, and working with brokers. And we're actually joined as well by Dale Prax, who's going to give really good insights into how to work with brokers. He's been in the brokering and transportation for the last 30 years. So he has 3 decades of experience under his belt that he's going to share with you. So this is really gold today. So definitely stick around to the end. We're going to be here. Dispatcher's going to be awesome. There are some really, really great services out there, but especially when you're first starting out, it is important to just even learn how to dispatch yourself. Even if you're going to use a dispatcher service in the future, learn how to dispatch yourself, create relationships, your own relationships with brokers, and really get a good understanding of how that whole process works so that you can do it in a pinch. But let's talk about how to find loads. So if you are just starting out, I'm not sure how many people, if you want to put in the chat how many years you've been in the industry or even how many months you've been in the industry, but I have some tips for you if you are brand new. If you're in your first month or so of operation, most brokers are not going to want to work with you. That is because you are brand new, you haven't established any track record for delivering loads on time and safely, right? So you're probably going to want to be looking at the Landstar or TQL load boards. These are the biggest brokers, and they work with brand new carriers, right? Brand new authorities. Because they're really big, they can take on more risk and they can work with those brokers. So those are the kinds of brokers that you're going to work with in the first month or so. Once you pass that, and you are ready to work with other smaller brokerages, you're going to be looking for them on these types of load boards. Now, we have a full list of our load boards on our blog, bobtail.com/blog. Definitely check that out. I see Marshall Transway Fleet LLC. You've been in the business for 18 months. You're going to be mainly on these kinds of load boards, right? DAT 123 load board, truckstop.com. But also check out our blog to see that full list of load boards. So these are the places that we're going to look at today. We're actually going to look at the DAT load board. You can also find other information about how to get loads and tips on load boards and how to look for loads on our Facebook group. We have a Facebook group called the Bobtail Help Desk. That is where you can get all of your industry questions answered, including tips on how to get loads. So Alejandra will be sharing that in the chat. And Byron Castellanos, looks like you're already using DAT. That is the one we're going to look at today. And I'm going to go over it pretty quickly because it looks like most people on here have already used a load board like this before. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm just going to share. Now, there are a couple of different versions of this that you can use. And you can see that when you first log into it, you're going to have a couple of ads here. If you're using this load board a lot, you're going to see more relevant information to your business on this screen. And you can see the national load counts here in every state. This can be really useful if you're going across the entire country. You can see what states are getting more freight in, where are more trucks coming in and fewer loads coming out, which is not what you want, right? You want the opposite. You want fewer trucks going in and more loads that need to be moved, right? You want to go to some place that has more loads, fewer trucks. You can also post your truck on here, and we can talk about that or answer questions on that if you're interested in that. But you can post your truck so that people will reach out to you. But mainly you're going to be searching on the load board using these search features. The origin, of course, is the city where you are, where your truck is, where you want to come out of. And the deadhead miles from origin is how many miles are you willing to go out of your way to pick up this load. So I'm in Chicago and I'm willing to go 100 miles out of my way to pick up the next load. So I'm going to keep it like that. You can also add a destination. You don't have to. You can just see all of the loads coming out of Chicago and then decide from there where you want to go. And then you can put the deadhead miles to destination. So if you're really looking to get home, let's say I need to get home to Grand Rapids and I don't want to go more than 50 miles out of my way. All right, I'm going to put in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and hit 50 on deadhead miles. But I'm going to leave it open for now. You can also search for truck type. So I have van right now, dry van. But if you have flatbed, reefer, whatever you have, you can put there. You can put length and weight. I recommend you leave these blank because that's going to give you a bigger variety of options. If you put in the length, it will only show on the top, it will only show the loads that fit that specific length of truck. And then if you want full or partial, you probably just want to put both. And then the look back hours. So this is how many hours have these loads been on the load board. Typically you want to do just a couple of hours depending on when you're searching for this, but I'm searching on Wednesday at noon. So I really just want maybe a 4-hour look back to see what loads have been published since 9 o'clock this morning. The longer the load has been on the load board, the more carriers have called in, the more kind of competition you have, right? So then we've got a start date here and an end date. Let's just say we want something that goes out tomorrow and gets delivered the same day. So I'm going to go here. All right, so we have almost 1,000 loads here, and I'm just going to go through what these terms mean at the top here, so you know how to search and what to search for. So you've got the age, so this is how long it's been on the load board, the pickup date, the origin, and the deadhead miles. So you can see that. I'm just going to pull this out a little bit so you can actually see in different columns what that means. So we've got DeKalb, Illinois, that's 65 miles from Chicago. Remington, Indiana, that's 91 miles from Chicago. And then we've got the destination. We don't have deadhead miles here because we haven't said what our destination is. So it's just an open-ended thing, right? You've got the number of miles that this is. So this one's 107 miles. The type of equipment, the length that it requires, and the weight, and full or partial. Now this factor check mark just means that DAT's partnered factoring company will factor that load. It doesn't necessarily mean that any factoring company will factor that load. So you're going to want to look to your factoring company, hopefully Bobtail, to see if we'll factor the load. And I'll show you how to look for that on the Bobtail app. It's super easy. Then you've got a credit rating or credit score. So that's how likely is this broker to pay, and days to pay. How many days since you deliver the load are they going to take to pay? You can see 21, 20, 19. That's pretty typical in days to pay. And so that's where factoring comes in so that you can get paid in either that same day or the next day after you deliver. And then the company. So this is the broker that you'd be working with and their contact information. Sometimes they'll have an offer on there. Sometimes they won't. It just kind of depends on what the broker is looking for. If it doesn't have one, then you're going to need to know your cost per mile so you can add on top of that for a profit. Rick will talk about that in a second. And if it does have an offer, you are still able to call that number with the broker and see if you can get a little bit more, right? You can still offer and, give your value prop for your company. Why should I be the one to deliver this load? I'm reliable, I'm on time, I'm safe, and I have a verified identity, and this is what I can do this load for, and you can try to negotiate it up. You can also search by or sort this list by any one of these. So if you wanted to see the absolute highest paying loads coming out of Chicago right now, then you could filter it by the offer. And then if you wanted to, you could sort by trip or any of these other different numbers here. So that is a little bit of a tutorial of the DAT load board. Yeah, DAT1 Pro is definitely the most popular. You have a couple of different ones. I was using just Trucker's Edge, which is the most, that's the cheapest paid version of the DAT load board. So I just showed that because that's what a lot of owner operators start with. So if you're just starting out, then that's probably the one that you're going to use. Like I said, for brand new MCs, these are really the ones that you're going to use. Landstar, TQL, these are the bigger brokerages. They have their own load boards that you can use to find loads in that first 30 days. Super easy to check a broker's credit rating with Bobtail on our mobile app, on our web app. If you're factoring with us, you just go to the app, you click on brokers in the menu there, and you can look up a broker there. So you have TQL there. We will factor loads from TQL. They've got a green check mark. That means that we'll factor loads from them. And if you're on the web app, you can actually see their credit rating. So we give them a rating from kind of like a letter grade, right? So any of the top letter grades will factor, and if we won't factor them, then it'll show that there. 200 million, more than 200 million loads. So lots of opportunity out there, tons of options, and it can actually kind of be overwhelming at the same time. So let's talk about then how you can negotiate better rates, how you can, once you've chosen the right load, how to negotiate better rates with brokers. And I'm going to hand it over to our sales manager, Rick Escobar, who's going to give you a couple of tips for negotiating with brokers. He is the negotiating extraordinaire here at Bobtail's, our sales manager. So he's really the guy you want to talk to about negotiation. Rick, what should carriers be looking out for when they're negotiating with brokers?
Caroline, thank you so much. I really appreciate everybody joining us today. I am one of 3 sales managers in the company. The company is 180 employees strong. And I'll tell you a little bit more about us in a little bit. A couple of things to always keep in mind: that in order for you to negotiate, you have to know your numbers. And the first number you need to know is your cost to operate your business per mile. Okay? Now, let's start with a couple of things. A lot of people obviously are going to use fuel, truck insurance, the truck payment, the trailer payment if you have one, maintenance and repairs. And sometimes they forget to put their own pay, because most of you are owner-operators. And if you are owner-operators, then you must include what it is that you pay yourself. So you have to include this, okay? There's several tools available for you that you can use so that you can get really, really to the penny on what your operating costs are. Now, once you know these costs, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to understand what you're getting into as far as a negotiation is concerned. And one of the reasons why we showed you the load board is the load board has a lot of information. So knowing your numbers as a company is very critical, just as it is critical to know the industry and to know your region, to know what those lanes usually pay. What is the average? Now, somebody asked, hey, what is the most popular? I use DAT1. DAT has kind of gone through some revamping. They used to be like Trucker's Edge Standard, Trucker's Edge Enhanced, et cetera, et cetera. Now they're called DAT1, Standard, Enhanced, Pro, Select, and Office. Really is, what do you want to get out of the load board? The interesting thing, and I don't want to sound like advertising for DAT. This is, most load boards will do it this way. The more you pay, the more you get out of them. Okay, we just use DAT as an example, but it's not necessarily that we're trying to push business their way. It helps us with the demonstration so that you can see, for example, with the DAT Pro version, you'll be able to get what is the 15-day average for that particular lane. So one of the things you want to learn is you want to learn what is the 15-day average, what is the 90-day average of that particular load. Okay, that gives you makes you better informed when you're calling the broker, so that you can negotiate the rate. These rates, again, are going to show you averages. So these brokers they're going to post what they want to pay. But remember that because it is an average, it could be a little slightly higher or lower than what's actually getting paid. So showing them your value. What are you bringing to the table? Okay. What past experiences can you share with them to show them that you're reliable? Is it the knowledge of the area? Some of you are from New Jersey, and I said, hey, you know what? Whatever you do, man, don't get on Route 46 between 3 and 5. If you're asking me to pick up a load on Route 46 between Hackensack and Lodi, it's probably not a good idea to do it around 5:30. It's going to be a mess. I'm going to be late. So knowing where you're at, knowing the area is extremely critical to your success. Okay.
What is the reason that loads on DAT are so cheap? That's what the question was asking. So thank you for that clarification on that, Philip. I think, and maybe I'd like to hear what you think, Rick, and maybe what you think, Dale. Why are the rates so cheap? So when the broker uploads a load to the load board, they are going to upload something so they're not going to go above what they think they can get the load moved for, right? Like, I'm going to put the lowest amount that I think someone will move this load for, and then expect, but I don't have, sometimes I think, okay, that is the absolute ceiling that I can move this load for, but there usually is some level of flexibility on loads, right? But if I'm posting it, I'm going to post, it's kind of like when you're selling something, right? It's the opposite. If I'm going to post how much I'll move the load for, well, you're going to post a way higher amount because you're the carrier, right? But if I'm the broker, I'm going to post the lowest that I would want to move that load for. That's why I think they're on the low end when you see the rates on the load board. Does that make sense to you, Rick?
Yeah, somewhat. And remember that most of this stuff is market driven. Okay. A lot of the time, from what the shipper is paying the broker and what the broker is willing to pay that particular carrier is driven by many different factors that we're all facing today, right? Whatever inflation is, whatever the fuel cost is, whatever the cost of goods is, those things have a very marginal effect in what is being offered. Okay. And this is why, if you know your cost of running your business, say it's $1.65, and you look at a load that is paying you $1.65, as an example, well, by golly, you can't run that load because you don't work for free. You don't work just to break even. So you have to really discuss, okay, if I'm at an average cost of operating my own business, I need you to help me out with, a $2 load or a $2.20 load. What the interesting thing there is that a lot of people who go into these load boards are willing to break even or just make a very slight profit margin. And that again drives some of these prices down. So we have to learn sort of like stand our ground. We have to stand our ground. There's value to what you do. And you have to have almost like self-worth. What is my self-worth? Am I just going to do this for whatever, just so I can be on the road and be away from the troubles at home? Or do I want to build a business? And we say this all the time. And Dale will touch on some of this stuff, but your ability to start a business is to create wealth, not to buy a job. If you're buying a truck and buying insurance and you just want to buy a job, plenty of people do that. You have to come into this with building a business. I'm going to create a business. What is my business plan for the next 6 months? What's my business plan for the next 12 months? And that boils down to, again, knowing your costs of operating your business so that you can confidently talk to brokers so that you can get a fair rate, okay, for what you're willing to move. If you have a flatbed, right, those rates are different. If you have a reefer, those rates are different. So again, you have to understand when you're talking about specific loads. Listen, I know the type of strapping that is required. I know the kind of weight I can move. You have to demonstrate that in the call, not just, hey, listen, I can do this for $1.95 or $2.45 or $3.05. That's not enough. Just asking for money is not enough. You have to demonstrate you're capable of doing this. And again, understanding what includes in the rates, the lumper fees, detention fees, waiting times, etc. Obviously, we say this all the time: start high and work your way down low. But you must demonstrate to the brokers that you have the ability, the integrity to deliver on what you're saying. These guys are getting called not by one, by hundreds. And they're in their mind trying to do quick calculations. And do I give this load to this guy? And certain things that we'll hear from Dale, who's a very experienced broker, that he'll share with us. Another thing is, don't get into arguments. Look, we all have different perspectives. I saw somebody in there said greed. Some guys are greedy, but not everybody's greedy. Some guys are trying to get the job done. Some people are saying, look, I got to get this done. And if it doesn't work for you, don't bow down to it. Don't take the load if it doesn't work for you. You have to find loads that work for you so you can stay in business. Don't use profanity. You got to be confident when you talk to people when you're negotiating. But don't get upset if they're stuck at it. Okay, listen, you know what? I got another 20 phone calls I got to make. Okay? Don't come off as, overbearing and cocky and everything. No, there's good stuff when you're humble, right? So listen, I'm new to the industry. I'm going to do a great job for you. Here is all my documentation. Right? So now I'm going to give the floor to Dale. Dale's resume is so large and so long. He's been in the business for over 25 years. He's got some really great things to share with everybody. So I'm gonna let Dale take the floor, and then I'll come back and tell you guys a little bit about Bobtail. So thank you so much. Dale, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. I want to say, first and foremost, that I think that it's very important to new carriers, new owner operators, new drivers to be part of something like this, because you're a pretty lucky group of people, because a lot of people that are just starting out don't have the opportunity to go through something like this. And I'm going to tell you, as a guy that works with carriers, drivers every single day that aren't knowledgeable in what they do, had they had this information, they'd probably be more successful in what they do now. So you're really lucky to have this platform to be able to have, and I think Bobtail's really doing you guys a great service. I don't work for them. I don't sell for them. I'm just saying that this is reality. It's a good deal. I wish I had something like this when I was starting, in 1994. So some of the things that we want to talk about in here, I want to go back to a couple of things we talked about that Rick talked about pretty eloquently before. You're in business, you're all in business to build a business. Jeff Bezos, being one of the richest guys in the world, didn't sell stuff on Amazon for free. You guys got to have the same mindset. But keep in mind that the broker you're working for is also in the business to build a business. So you've got to find that happy medium in there and say, okay, this guy's offering $1,500 for a load. Well, that's really kind of ridiculous, especially if you look at the tools that Bobtail's talking to you about. Like, you should know what the average rate is for that lane, so you know if the guy's too low. But you keep in mind that the guy that's working on getting the load to you, maybe a guy that's been in the business for less time than you have. He doesn't know what the rate is. Most brokers have no clue what it costs you to run a truck. They give to their customer your rate and add on 10% or 15%, whatever their percentages. All they know is a percentage. And the other thing that to keep in mind for those brokers, that kid that's taking your load, trying to give you a load, he gets paid by how much margin he makes. The least amount of money he can pay you and charge to his shipper, the more his bonuses go up. So let's not fund him. Let's fund you. Okay? You stand your ground in a nice way and be professional to him. And before I go into the next slide, I want to just talk about building relationships. Your goal right now should be using those load boards. Use a TQL load board. Use all those as you're new. As you start grow into ITS, 123 load board, DAT, all those kind of things. But your ultimate goal is within 2 years to be off a load board unless you need it as a crutch because you're stuck somewhere. Build relationships with your brokers, become friends with them, become their best buddy, just like they want their customers. Develop your customer list and say, hey, I'm in town this week, buddy. John, I'll be here next Tuesday in Chicago. I'd really like to see if you have anything for me. Those relationships will make you like excel. The guys that have been around for 20 years and still use a load board for their major means of building their business are not doing well. So I'll go into the slide and talk a little bit more about some things that are important to us. When you talk about freight brokering, fraud is like a huge, huge issue. And so you all have to be aware of who you're getting the load from. Even if it's posted on the DAT load board, there are people out there that will take information from other folks and steal their identity and try and con you into taking a load. And then the next thing you know, they're out of business. They close down their MC number and you don't get paid. The factoring company, whoever you're working for, if you are, will recoup the money. Most factory companies, like I think Bobtail is really good at finding that fraud because they have processes in place and protocols to make sure they find them. But if you're on your own, you got to look to other places to say, hey, am I getting this from the real guy that posted on that? So one of the tools that I've developed, because I've been a broker for a long time, and I do this for free. I'm not here to make a buck. I'm here to make a difference. We offer a program called freightvalidate.com. And if you go to that website, it's absolutely free. You just have to register, log in. If you're a bad guy and have been convicted of fraud before, you can't verify your data, you can't get into there to look for anything. But if you go in there and type in the MC number of the broker that's giving you the freight, it'll tell you if they're a validated company. It'll tell you if their address is real. They'll tell you if they've committed any fraud before. So you know if they got a green check mark, you could probably use them. They're probably pretty good. We've checked them. If they're red, you probably don't want to use them, and because they've lied on their application to get their motor carrier authority, or they've done something that's not good. And the other thing about when you go to there, when you get the telephone number or the email from the broker trying to give you the freight, check on that email, because they'll change things like from J&D Logistics to at jnd.com. They'll change and take out the S or something and make it look really close. So they're phishing you, and they, you end up giving your freight to a person that it doesn't belong to. Another thing is a carrier, a brand new carrier. The guys that have been around for a long time that are scammers in this business prey on people like you. They want to say, hey, this guy's new. I'm going to take advantage of him. He's looking for a load. I'm going to offer him, when the market's $1,200, I'm going to offer him $2,000. And so a new guy like you is like, hey, that's a great deal. I'm brand new. This is good money. So you want to know who they are. So if you look at Freight Validate, it'll say, and we have Freight Club up there too. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But freightvalidate.com is how you check the MC number. It'll say also, what a lot of carriers will do is they'll take a load from a broker, and then they don't have a truck in the area. So rather than give it back and lose money, they'll post it out again on DAT like they're a broker. And so a carrier is going to give you some freight, try and give you some freight. If they do, that's called double brokering. It's against the MAP 21, which is it's CFR 49. There's all kinds of laws against it. You can't take loads from another carrier unless they have a brokerage authority. So it'll say on freightvalidate.com whether they're a broker or a carrier. If they're a carrier, don't take freight from them. Okay, they're violating the law. So it's a lot with verification, and we do a lot of things to check. Like every day I get a list from Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration of all the people that are applying to become a carrier or a broker. And I have a robot that I've built that sifts through that and finds out what their principal place of business is. And if they put a post office box, that's against the Code of Federal 49 CFR, the Code of Federal Regulations, paragraph 390.5T. You cannot work out of a post office box. It's illegal. So we look for that every single day. My robot pulls out all that data, see who says they're working at a UPS store or a Staples or something other than a virtual office, right? And we send a letter to Federal Motor saying, hey, they're violating the law. We're protesting their MC number. Don't give them an MC number. So how many of you, just raise your hand if you're using a Gmail address for your email to communicate with people? Okay, if you are, the best advice I can give you is stop, because most fraudsters use a Gmail address, like, tnttrucking@gmail.com. If you don't have a website address, me as a broker has been around for a long time, will find you that you're not credible, that you just are another Gmail address out there somewhere, and you don't care enough about your company to really build a presence or a brand. So the best recommendation I can give you is go to GoDaddy or wherever you get your email address from. Get an actual name. If your name of your company is Jones Trucking Incorporated, make sure your email address is bob@jonestrucking.com. Order that thing, and they'll even give a lot of those places give you a free website. So you can have a one-page website that says what you do different, what lanes you run. As a broker, that's what I look for. I look for somebody that cares about their company, because if they care about their company, they're probably going to care about my freight. If they don't care about their company, they're probably not going to care about my freight. Okay, buy a business domain, use a website, and make me feel like this guy really cares. If you don't, then you're just another one of the guys on there. And we talked about lower rates before. Especially as a young broker, they're going to put out there the lowest rate that they think they can get, because somebody will take it. Probably, there'd be some guy that's maybe got a broken down truck, or he just has to get home. So somebody may take it, but stand your ground, look at what the average rates are across DAT or wherever you want to get that information from, and be able to go back to them and say, hey, the average rate is, $1,500. You have it posted for $1,200. I'll do it for $1,495 and see if they give it to you. If they don't, move on. It's much better for you to spend a couple more hours there, wait for a load to come up that's going to pay for you, because, would you rather make your time getting caught up on your work or emails, or there's some things that you can do in that time where you're waiting for the load, or lose money. The last thing you want to do is lose money. None of us, even if you're brand new, none of us need to be in this business for practice. We don't need to just practice taking loads because somebody doesn't want to pay us for it. We've got to really be in it with a business mindset. So we covered that about the real business addresses and everything. If anybody's working out of a PO box and you haven't been caught with that, get your address changed with Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. If you have to put your house address in, that's great. It has to be a place where you maintain your office and you can be available for inspections. What else do I have? Do I have another slide?
Last time that we were on our workshop like this, you had some great advice for what carriers can do proactively to prove to brokers that they're not a fraud.
Right.
You said last time, it was a great line, that you have to prove that you're not a fraudster. It's kind of like proving that you're innocent before.
I just didn't want to get ahead of myself and see a slide here, and but yeah. It's really cool to go, if you come to me as a brand new broker and say, I'm going to tell you right off the top, you don't really have to check me too much to see if I'm a good guy or bad guy. Because for any broker, if you're new or you're a carrier out there, first thing I'm going to think is the guy's a fraudster. He's got to prove me that he's not. So some things that we have on this list here, like send them your articles of incorporation, show them that it matches your Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration information. You wouldn't believe the number through our freight validate system, how many people are either not really registered in a state, with the Secretary of State's office, with an authority, how many people use a different name. We found one person, maybe a group of people, that owned 235 MC numbers. They would scam a broker. They would scam another carrier. When they got caught, they would shut everything down. No one could find them because they weren't incorporated anywhere. No one checked. And they'd open their next MC and go on to the next MC number. And Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has 1,150 employees, so they can't catch all these guys. So you have to be really diligent on yourself to watch out for the guys that are going to try and rip you off, because there are people out there that are in the business and they're making big business to try and rip people off. So send a copy of, when you set up your carrier packet with the new broker, do extra. Say, I want to prove to you that I'm who I am. Send a copy of your articles of incorporation. Even if they don't ask for it, just say, I'm going to include this in my packet to you because I want you to know that I'm a person that's on the up and up. So your articles of incorporation, send them a photo of your truck. If you have only one truck and you're going to do a pickup, say, because I know there's a lot of scamming things going out there, here's a picture of me with my driver's license, with a picture of my door behind me on my truck, a selfie that shows my MC number on it so it all matches. If I get something like that from a carrier, I'm going like, this guy is for real. This guy, this girl is for real. They're really doing the extras that things, they're saving me time from looking for it because they're going to give it to me in the beginning. When you go to pick up a load, send the broker a copy of your driver's license. You want to talk about good security. That way they can call their shipper and say, hey, here's, Amy Chavez. She's the driver. She's coming in. Here's what she looks like. Here's what her truck looks like. If anybody any different than that comes in there, or a different truck comes in there, don't give them the load. Contact me immediately, because somebody will pick up the information that you're supposed to go pick up. Could be an inside job, and they'll send another truck in there. I was talking to a guy at Amazon just a couple of weeks ago, and he said that there was a fraud in California where guys would paint up a tractor of a truck to look like Amazon, put it on the door, and an inside job would be tracking the truck to see where he is using, the tracking systems. And they would find the guy, and he says, okay, I'm at a truck stop. I'm going to take my 10-hour break. The fraudster would show up in the truck painted like an Amazon truck and say, hey, I've got the bill of lading here. They need me to take this load from you and take it to California now. The guy thinks that, okay, it's on the up and up. The truck looks like an Amazon truck. He's got my bill of lading. He knows my name. He's got everything here. He must work for Amazon. I'm not going to question Amazon. Doesn't call his broker. Next thing you know, the trailer's gone. It's in Glendale, California, being stripped and sent out in airplanes across places in the world. So people are really big on fraud. So you got to be real careful. Make sure that your insurance company, if you have, 1 to 5 trucks, and usually your certificate of insurance is scheduled autos. That's what most people start with. And I think most new people use Progressive or whoever you use. Make sure at the bottom, they list all of your VIN numbers of your trucks that they cover. So that way you can show the broker that, look, this is me, this is my truck, this is my MC number, it's insured. Because I'll look at that saying, hey, this guy really takes care of business. You wouldn't believe the number of people that will pay $300 to get their authority. They'll get some insurance company that's a fraudulent insurance company they have a relationship with. They'll give them a VIN number for something they found for sale on eBay, and they'll pay the $300. They'll get the insurance certificate, and next thing you know, they got authority without proving who they are. The application, they wrote the name Charlie Brown. They're in business. So be the guy that's not that person that says, I'm way ahead of this game. Here's a picture of my truck. Here's my authority. Check my VIN number. When I get to the shipper, if you'd like, I'll open my door. They can take a picture of my VIN number to make sure it all matches. Just be so proactive. And so when you're going out there to sell to people, you tell them, I'm not the guy that's run-of-the-mill guy that owns a bunch of MC numbers. I am one person. Here's my address. Here's my phone number. Here's everything you need to know about me. I am the most transparent person you'll meet. You'll gain so much over people who have been in business for even longer, okay? I know we talked a little bit earlier about dispatch services, especially a young company. There's a lot of, controversy or whatever with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, whether a dispatch service is really a broker, if they're doing things for, to make money, or not really a dispatcher or a bona fide agent. So be real careful of these dispatch services. Say, hey, I'm going to make some money. I'll find you a broker. If it were me, I would dispatch every load myself until you can't afford not to, until you're too busy to that you have to hire somebody. And before you go to a dispatch service, just my recommendation, after a guy that's seen a lot of bad things happen, hire your own dispatcher, have them work for you. A dispatch service will never be able to portray what your culture is to a customer because they have so many other carriers that they work for. If a guy works for you, they're going to know your culture. You're going to trust them. They're going to trust you. It'll pass on to your shippers. Don't farm yourself out and lose money over paying somebody where you don't have to. Another thing that's a way we talked about networking before. I hope you're all on LinkedIn. If you're not, you should get on there. You will learn a lot about other people, be able to network with them, find other brokers, find other carriers. It's really, transportation really is a kind of a tight group. There was a link earlier for freightclub.us. That's like a LinkedIn, but it's only got freight professionals in it, and it's vetted freight professionals. So trucking companies, shippers, factoring companies, insurance companies. There's all kinds of folks that come together in there and share ideas. and network. So you want to really network and get to know people. I think that one way to get new customers, if you live in, say, Peoria, Illinois, I would look up every single broker that's in that area and knock on their door, give them a call, because you automatically have a connection. We both live in Peoria. Your kids may go to the same school. It's always easier to trust somebody that you've met, you had coffee with, you lives in your same town. So that's where I would start. Drive by the industrial centers of your neighborhood and see who's picking up there. Do they have a lot of trucks in there? Knock on the door. Say, hey, I see you do some truckload stuff out of here. Maybe I can help you with that. And a lot will say we have dedicated carriers, and just say, well, use me then when you can't find capacity, because that's my job, is to help you find loads out of here. I'm local. I'll usually have a truck here. And when let's see, always call your broker when you're out there and you got a load for a carrier, or for you're a carrier, you got a load for a broker. Most of them will ask you to take MacroPoint and do tracking and those kind of things. But I like to see, as a driver that's proactive, whether you're dispatching it or you dispatch it yourself and you're the driver, call the broker and say, hey, I'm your driver. I want you to know that I understand all the requirements that you're asking of me. I know that I've sent you a picture. My truck is a 2003 Cascade, whatever, 23 Cascade, whatever it is, and build that relationship with that broker. Because if you're nice to him and you call him and say, hey, you don't really have to track me. I'll call you whenever you need me to. Call them when you arrive, even though they're going to get maybe that ping from their geofence. Still call them and say, hey, I've arrived here. I'm looking for the guy. Is there anything that you want me to know before I go and make this delivery? Make the calls. Always call them. Let them know who you are, and do it on every load. Call them and give them updates. And always send a quick, whether it's email, text, however that broker likes to communicate with you, send them a thank you for the load. Ask them if there's got anything else coming up. And when you get home, it's really kind of cool for brokers, because no one does this anymore. Type out a handwritten, or write out a handwritten thank you card and drop it in the mail to them. Mail has become such a thing that no one even thinks about anymore. But when they get something in the mail, it's really a tangible, and they say, this guy really does care about me. He didn't send me just some email or text. You wouldn't believe the customer of ours that say, man, I went to a customer in New Jersey just last week, and there was one of the thank you notes that I sent to him hung up on his wall. He says he leaves that up to remind all of his people that there still are good brokers out there. So send a nice handwritten note once in a while to your customers. They'll love it. What else do I have on my list here?
That's such great advice. And I have to say, I added this little note in. It's actually a lesson from my childhood, because my mother always made me write handwritten thank you notes for every gift I got, or every cool thing that we did. So, but I think that's great advice, great life lesson too.
Yeah, I think that's something that's kind of gone away. So totally. what we try to do is automate as many things as we can. So not to take jobs away from people, but to fundamentally change what they do. So building relationships. My dispatchers don't call drivers and say, where are you? Technology tells us where you are. They call and say, how was your kid's soccer game last night? Did they win? That's what really makes a relationship. The rest of the stuff doesn't matter. You know, I want to make it so that in 10 years from now, someone won't remember the load that I did for them. They'll remember how I helped them through a situation. Okay. So be really helpful with these guys. The next slide talks about factoring services. There is nothing better than being aligned with a factoring company. And the reason I say that, first of all, for obvious cash flow reasons. The other thing is, a brand new carrier, if you go in and talk to a new shipper, a new broker, they want to say, well, what makes you different? I mean, how do I know that about getting paid and all that kind of thing? So if you're factoring your receivables, you're going to have money. You don't have to worry about fuel. You're going to get your money up front. A lot of brokers, a lot of carriers, a lot of brokers, a lot of shippers sometimes don't pay for 30 to 45 days. As a new carrier, you don't have time for that, man. You got to put fuel in your truck for the next run. So the other thing is that you go through an underwriting process, right? So everybody knows you're credible. They know exactly who you are. All those things we talked about not having your Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration data match your Secretary of State's articles, well, I'll tell you what, anybody goes through underwriting through a factoring company, that's all taken care of for you. They're letting the world know that you have been validated. You have been, it's called know your customer. It's something that banks and everybody else does. The transportation department, transportation industry is far behind in a lot of those things. So let the factoring company, and I really think the world of factoring companies like Bobtail, because you're going to get mail and you're going to get emails, you're going to get texts from all kinds of big factoring companies that want your business, if you're not already. And some are good, some are horrible. Some are big, some are small. Here's what my experience tells me. If you deal with a really big guy, they're big, they don't care about you. They care about that you're just another person of their 380,000 drivers that are out there. If you go to a small company and you say, like Bobtail's, the kind of company says, hey, I want to have something maybe a little different. I want to get paid on Thursdays rather than Tuesdays. If you went to a regular factoring company, sorry, that's our policy. Take it or leave it. They don't work with, none of the big factoring companies work with you because they don't need to. If you go away, they get another one coming tomorrow. Small companies like me, small companies like Bobtail, you guys mean a lot to us because that's how we build. The big guys really don't care. They just don't care. I don't know why it is. Oh, I do know why. It's because it goes back to that word greed. They're a little more greedy than the small guys. My factoring company is kind of does what Bobtail does, but we're on the brokerage side, so we use another company, and they're so similar in all the things that they do, and that's why I really, really like the relationship with Bobtail that has with their carriers, because you're getting the same kind of service I'm getting as a broker, and it's really kind of unheard of. And I've been with the big guys as factor. I've been doing this for a long time, and I've been with the big factors. I've been with the small factors. I would recommend anytime until you start being $100 million company, then you can go to a big guy. But if you're small, you go with the small guys. They'll treat you so much better. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we can talk a little bit, just remind people about the different tools that you've created and supported, and they can avoid fraud. We've talked about brokers want to avoid fraud and how you can become legitimate and look legitimate to them. So there are some other things that you've mentioned here about avoiding fraudulent loads. You've got a great tool, freightvalidate.com. So we'll put that I think we've put that in the chat. Freightclub.us is a community of people, vetted people. So a lot of really great resources there, Dale. So thank you so much for going through those and sharing those with us.
Yeah, and I think there are other companies out there that do kind of what Freight Validate does. For the time being, I've started about 2 months ago, and I did it because I really wanted to make a difference. I didn't want, there's some people that build these, I don't know if you want to call them monitoring things, and they take information from Federal Motor Carrier Administration, make it look pretty, and say, you don't use this guy because of that reason. It may be because, let's say he's a brand new carrier, he hasn't had an inspection in a year. So let's say brokers don't use that guy. Well, a driver can't help that he hasn't been inspected in a year. There's only so many inspectors to do it. You may run a lane where you don't have a scale that's open. So I think it's really, to me, I call that like almost profiling somebody. Let's find reasons not to use people because they're breaking the law. Like if they lie about their affiliation with other companies, there's a block on, you all fill out your OP1s and everything to apply. Do you remember a block in there that said, are you affiliated with any other company or family member that owns another MC number or authority? I found one guy that had 15 MC numbers, all worked out of not only the same apartment building, the same apartment. So this thing's got to be 500 to 800 square feet. And there are 13 companies in there. And on all of his forms, none of us know each other. That's weird. So if they're going to lie about something like that, fraud doesn't start with how many inspections you do, how many trucks you have. Fraud starts with being a fraudster. If you fill out your application and you lied on it, that's the start of fraud. There's a reason they're doing it. Some people are trying to get around the deal about you can't have a P.O. box for your principal place of business. So they think they're being slick by, okay, I'm going to use P.O. Box 250, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Well, we know now that they're getting caught doing that. So they get the address for the post office, which is 550 Main Street, and they'll say, okay, my address is 550 Main Street, apartment 305 Minneapolis, rather than P.O. Box, thinking they won't get caught. And they don't normally get caught until they come to guys like me, who that's what I do, is I catch people like that. So look for that. There are three ways that people break the law when they first start in as a carrier. One is they lie in their application about their affiliation with other people. Number two is they put a principal place of business that's in violation of the law. And the third thing is they list something on their Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration that doesn't match their actual incorporation. Because you could write Charlie Brown on your application with Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, and they will just put it right through the list and think that you're going to go work with Linus. They don't even check, but your real name is somebody else. So if somebody's going to break the law, if it's a broker or a carrier, they're going to do it right from the beginning, and eventually it'll catch up with them. But the deal is to find companies like, I put a lot of money into this thing, my own personal money, because I have real heart for it. There's a lot of guys that just get the information from Federal Motor and then put a pretty website together and charge you $500 a month for checking a carrier, which is something you go to Safer Assist and check yourself. We dig pretty deep into it because we want to really protect guys like you, because if brokers aren't protecting guys like you, then we don't have any carriers anymore. You know, people tell me all the time, what's your relationship with your carriers? For me, it's easier to find a new customer in case I lose one than it is to find a good driver. And so you got to be one of those top good drivers that people are looking for. And then cross-checking things are too. If you want to look at Freight Validate and they're good, go ahead and go to Safer Assist and see if anything's changed on there. Go to companies like My Carrier Packets. They're mycarrierpackets.com. There you can check to see if they've ever had a charge of double brokering against them. How many companies have blocked them from use? I mean, there's companies I've seen that have 55 blocks. Well, if I'm a carrier, I'm probably not going to use that guy. I don't care that he's going to give me $6,000 on a 40-mile run, because I'm never going to get paid anyway. So I would use that too. So there's a lot of cross things to do. And then the Freight Club community, put out there, you know, how many trucks you have, where do you like to run? Let people know that there's shippers on there. There are brokers on there. You can maybe find somebody that's in your area and say, hey, let's get together and have lunch and talk about what I do. I mean, there's nothing here in Knoxville. I'd much rather work with a guy right here in Knoxville, because I can go beat his head in if he doesn't know. I'm just kidding. If you want to be close by him and you want to have lunch with him and be nice to him, you know? So it's really important to get to know those people. So we talked about dispatching our own loads, broker authority, your certificate of insurance. Make sure, here's if you don't remember anything else of this thing, if you don't remember anything about brokering or getting paid, the most important thing that I can tell you from a broker who's been doing it for a long time, that's dealt with thousands of carriers and drivers, never, ever, no matter under any circumstance, lie to your customer. If you stopped at a casino because you have a gambling problem and you were late, tell the driver or tell your customer, I have a problem with gambling, I stopped at a casino. If you tell them that your truck broke down or something else, tell them that once you lie and they catch you, you're out. And guess what? They're networked with a bunch of other people on LinkedIn like you're trying to be. Your name will be shot. Just never lie. If you had to stop and see your girlfriend, tell them you stopped and saw your girlfriend. Things happen. We are all people. If you lie about it, I guarantee you'll get caught. So just, if I can give you any advice of this whole thing at all, never lie to a broker or shipper. It won't do you. You'll get caught.
Such good advice, Dale. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I know we're already at time now, but we appreciate your time so much and all of the wisdom from your 30 years of experience. It's just incredible. I know you just, that 30-year mark just came by for you this month. So congratulations on that. Incredible work and incredible experience. I'm going to hand it over to Rick just to wrap us up for a few minutes here. And in the meantime, we're also going to share a link in the chat to a survey for this session with the Bobtail Help Desk. if you can send what you thought of our session here. I see someone just joined as well. If you missed any part of this, we have it recorded. It's going to be up on YouTube this afternoon, and we'll send you an email about it tomorrow morning. So Alejandro will send that link in the chat right now, and I'll leave it to Rick to wrap us up and take us home.
Thank you so much, Caroline, and thank you again to Dale and everybody who is attending. Really, the question is, why do you want to choose Bobtail if you're looking for a factoring company? And this could be a very long answer, but Dale touched on something that's very, very important, and is the type of service that you're looking for. Are you looking for someone that's going to know your name, that's going to know about your business in depth, or you just don't really care and you want to deal with one of these very large companies? Now, large companies, for the most part, will lock you into a long-term agreement. And long-term in this business is 12 months. But that's a long time. If you're locked into an agreement with another company and you have an issue and you say, you know what, I want to get out of here, they're going to say, yes, you can get out, but you got to pay us $10,000 to get out. That's an early termination fee. We don't have that. Our contract is literally month to month. So no long-term contracts. The other thing is we don't have any hidden fees. A lot of these companies that you see out in the market today will offer very low rates, and you'll see 2%, you'll see even 1%, 1.5%. And people fall for that trap. That's advertising. People fall for it and they sign blindly. They don't read these 37-page contracts. And before you know it, you're actually paying 4.5%, 5%, because you're paying all these hidden fees. And you name the fee, they got it. Transparency is the biggest thing we have going for ourselves, and that's why we have grown so much. I said we are about 100 employee, 80 strong right now. We started out of a basement, okay, in a little truck stop outside of Baltimore, Maryland. And we were started out by the son of a trucker. And he was the dispatcher. He was the everything. He was the GOAT, right? He would do everything. Do this, do that. One of the things that he realized when he dealt with factoring companies is how much they lied to him. They would say, yeah, you know, it's 2% or it's 2.25%. And then he starts factoring and he would see all these fees, all these charges, and it would drive him nuts. He said, you know, one day I'm going to start my own factoring company, and it's going to be above board. It's going to be clear. We're not going to hide from people. We're going to tell you the truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's why you should come join us. Always remember, when the deal is too good to be true, it probably is. It happens in double brokering. It happens in factoring. All the time, people are trying to scam you. So I want to thank everybody. We're going to make it very short. We're over time. Thank you so much for joining us. So thank you so much and have a lovely day.
What are some of those topics that you'd like to hear from? We will get them to you. So let us know. And thank you again so much. We're looking forward to talking to you about Bobtail's factoring service in the future and some of our other exciting things coming up. So thank you again, and we will see you very soon. Thank you.